Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Zay News Live, and welcome to this English news edition. Coming up next. According to Finance Minister Abderrahmane Benkhelfa, the government is to reconsider bread and electricity prices plus. Top Hezbollah commander Mustafa Badreddine was killed in Syria this week. We will shed light on the Cannes Film Festival 2016 that kicked off in style. Hello there again, and thanks for joining us. First in our top stories, the chairman of the High Islamic Council, Sheikh Bouamran, who died Thursday at the age of 92, has been laid to rest at Sidi Fraj Cemetery today, Friday. The burial ceremony was attended by Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Prime Minister Abdelmalek Salal, and members of the government, as well as political and historical personalities and his relatives. The funeral oration was devoted to the rich cultural and intellectual path of late Sheikh Bouamran. May he rest in peace. And in national economic-related news, according to the Finance Minister, Mr. Abderrahmane Benkhelfa, the government is to reconsider bread and electricity prices with the aim of coping with the current financial crisis in one hand and fight off the worrying phenomena of wasting food, notably bread, on the other hand. According to the figures released by the Finance Ministry, Algerians squander half of their food. Mustafa Badreddine.
After its economy was severely hit by the current economic crisis that resulted in a budget deficit that exceeded $14 billion in just 2 months, the government is set to reconsider its subsidiary policy as it prepares to introduce a package of measures aimed at hiking the prices of essential food to cope up with the crisis in one hand and fight off the worrying phenomena of wasting food, notably bread, in the other hand. According to figures released by the Finance Ministry, Algerians squander half of their food.
Ramadan is around the corner, and during the holy month, we always hope that bread would not be squandered. You know why? Because 50% of the raw materials come from abroad, which means we have to subsidize them. That's for the bread, let alone the fast-growing rate of electricity consumption. For instance, now Algerians have 4-story buildings and each floor is equipped with air conditioners. I know that is good, but it doesn't mean they have to turn them on all the time. The list is long. I can keep going on and on.
Bread is not the only substance included in the agenda. The government does not rule out introducing new electricity rates merely a few months after it hiked prices by 30%. It is worth mentioning that the state's treasury bore 60% of the total pricing currently applied.
We have increased the prices of fuels by just 10%, whereas other countries like Saudi Arabia abruptly hiked the prices by 40%. And there are other countries which increased the rates by 60%. I was hoping the consumption rate would drop, but surprisingly it did not. We have an odd behavior, which is characterized by squandering essential services.
Increasing the prices of essential services under the pretext of eradicating the phenomena of extravagance comes in conjunction with expanding the tax base initiated by the executive body, as well as eliminating economic duality, a move that would enable the country to find a new way in funding the national economy.
To eradicate holiday-makers' recurrent ban, the concession of beaches to private individuals, the Interior Ministry has at last prohibited the activity for next summer. The ban was officially formalized by a statement signed by the Minister of Interior and Local Assemblies, Mr. Nordin Bedoui. The latter put the primary responsibility on the coastal provinces. Karim Fazakri.
Ministry of Interior Affairs and Local Assemblies gave strict instructions to assure a good course of summer season 2016. The ministry asked the 14 coastal provinces to postpone any concession procedure of beaches or beaches portions to private operators, except for those granted to hotels and touristic complexes in their area of operation. This is to stop the recurring violations and exceeded failures during each summer, including the infringement of the citizens' right to free access to beaches. However, the ministry does give the private operators a temporary right to occupy the necessary areas just for them to install their beach equipments, tables, chairs, and beach umbrellas. They can rent to holiday makers, but giving them the opportunity to install beforehand on the shore. But it is feared that these permissions give rise to misinterpretation and overruns that could jeopardize the right of vacationers. The ministry also gave instructions to fix the fees of the services provided at the seashore. Regarding accessibility to beaches and managing their car parks or parking areas, the statement of the ministry authorizes the town to make the tendering system for these spaces with referential minimum rents set by the area's service and depending on the rental value actually used in the market. All these laws and others before have been stepped on and violated. The same scenario this season is also more likely to take place, since there's no valid supervision. Or could this season be any different?
And now it's time for me to be joined live by Lamia Ashush, who has prepared for us the most important national and international highlights of this week. What have you prepared for us, Lamia?
Thank you, Nadia. I will take you through this week's recap on the national and international scene. On Sunday, May 8th, 71 years would have already passed on the massacres of the Algerian population perpetrated by colonial France. On that day, 71 years ago, 45,000 people were brutally killed with cold blood by the repressive practices of the colonial war machine in Sétif, Guelma, and Kharrata, as well as many other regions of the country. The darkest massacre in the history of Algeria occurred just as heroic Algerian soldiers were returning from the battlefields of Europe, Africa, and elsewhere, where they had coercively fought to defend France's interests. But on May 8th, the French colonial administration, in response to mounting anti-French riots, fired shots on peaceful demonstrators, and colonial forces launched an air and ground offensive against several eastern cities. May the souls of the martyrs forever rest in peace. In other national news, and once again, the judge of the Administrative Court of Bir Morad Rais has decided to postpone the hearing of the Al Khabar Media Group purchase trial to the 25th of May at the request of the Ministry of Communications Defense. On the other hand, several political parties' representatives were present in front of the Bir Morad Rais court in solidarity with the Al Khabar Media Group, headed by the General Secretary of Workers' Party, Louisa the head of the RCD party, Mohsen Bil-Abbas, and the head of the Jil Jadid party, Sofiane Jilali, in addition to Abdelkrim Tabbou, the head of the Social Democratic Union party. The trial is already sparking a lot of controversy, and for those of you who don't know the details, the government, through the Ministry of Communication, says that the purchase of the media group by businessman Issa Al-Abrab is unlawful because he already owns a newspaper, which is prohibited by Algerian law. And moving on to other national news, a major headline this week has been the car dealers who can now breathe easy. The much-awaited and long overdue car import licenses were finally released by the government. This delay delivering the import licenses has caused a total state of stagnation in the sector and has frustrated car dealers who said they've suffered great financial losses because of it. The car import licenses were handed over to car dealers back on Monday, May 9th, and at the provincial trade directorates, allowing dealers to import a quota of 15,000 vehicles per year, while new car dealerships have a quota of 300 cars during the first year, after the decision to divide the quota on the dealers based on the share of each one in the market during the last 3 years. Moving on now to international news, ISIS has claimed responsibility for 3 separate bomb explosions that rocked Baghdad on May 11th, killing at least 93 people and injuring more than 165 others, making it the deadliest day of violence in the Iraqi capital this year. The largest of the car bombings killed 63 people at an outdoor market in the Shia Muslim neighborhood of Sadr City. The bomb was in a pickup truck loaded with fruits and vegetables. Later on that day, 2 separate car bombs in northern Baghdad killed at least 30 people and injured 80 others. The first bomb exploded at a police station in the northwestern Kadhimiya neighborhood, while another stuck in the northern neighborhood of Jamia. In London now, England Labour Party's Sadiq Khan has been sworn in as the first ever Muslim mayor. Mr. Khan said he wanted all Londoners to have the same opportunities he has had. And it didn't take him long it didn't take London's new mayor long to make a splash on the world stage. He knocked a fast but effective hole in Donald Trump's proposed temporary ban on foreign Muslims entering the United States of America. Trump himself now says that Sadiq Khan, the first Muslim to become mayor of a major Western city, would be an quote exception to his proposed policy, but it's not clear what that means. Khan, for his part, says he would not visit the United States on principle if the broader ban were in effect. And now, finally, in sports news, after helping Leicester City to Premier League glory in one of the greatest sporting achievements in history, Algeria's international Riyad Mahrez was named the club's Player of the Year, having already been crowned a PFA Player of the Year. The Algeria international was recognized for a stellar 2015-2016 season, during which his 17 goals and 11 assists helped propel the Foxes to their maiden league title at preseason odds of 5,000 to 1. Way to go, Riyad Mahrez. That was it for me, Lamia Ashush. Back to you, Nadia.
Thank you, Lamia. And in other world developments, top Hezbollah commander Mustafa Badreddine was killed in Syria this week. Badreddine, 55, was one of the highest-ranking officials in the group and believed by the U.S. government to be responsible for Hezbollah's military operations in Syria, where it is fighting alongside Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. He was killed on Tuesday night. The attack targeted one of Hezbollah's bases near Damascus airport, the group's nerve center in the Syrian capital. In an attempt to stop a North African expansion of the Daesh extremist group, the United States has provided Tunisia with military equipment to counter the inflow of the terrorists from neighboring Libya, a country that has seen increasing unrest and violence following a 2011 Washington-supported intervention. On Thursday, the U.S. shipped hardware to Tunisia to bolster the North African country's southern border. According to U.S. officials, a mandatory, the allocation is part of a $20 million effort to enhance the military capability of the country. The delivery includes 12 light surveillance aircraft and 48 jeeps, as well as communication technologies to track extremists attempting to infiltrate the country. U.S. officials said President Barack Obama's administration is ready to get a UN ban on arms exports to Libya lifted to help the unity government fight to the so-called Islamic State in the unstable North African state where the jihadists have gained ground. Back in March, the UN Security Council passed a resolution to help the fight against ISIS in Libya, but did not lift the arms embargo. Libya's UN-backed unity government Prime Minister-designate Fayez al-Sarraj, with Egypt's backing, has asked for the embargo to be lifted to help his government arm itself. Brazil's new interim president, Michel Temer, has addressed the nation after the Senate voted to back the impeachment trial of Dilma Rousseff. Let's have a listen.
With my first words to the Brazilian people is to say trust in me. The word trust means trusting in our values, in the values of our people, the vitality of our democracy. You may trust in our ability to recover the economy, in the potential of our country, in the country's institutions, both social and political, and together we will be able to face these challenges because it's a difficult moment. And I reiterate, as I have been saying, that it's urgent to pacify the nation and unify Brazil. It's urgent to form a government that will save the nation. Political parties, leaders, and organized movements, and the people of Brazil, you must collaborate in order to save the country from this serious crisis. Dialogue is the first step to face the challenges in order to take steps forward and begin to grow again.
However, on the other hand, President Dilma Rousseff of Brazil has condemned her impeachment as a farce and a coup, denying a wrongdoing. Let's have a listen to what she said.
Has been undergoing sabotage, and the aim is to prevent me from governing and trying to create a propitious environment for the coup. When an elected president is suspended because of an accusation of a crime I haven't been committed, the name we give is not impeachment, it's coup. That is in a democratic country. I did not violate budgetary laws. There is no reason for me to be impeached. I don't have bank accounts abroad. I've never taken bribery, and I've never committed corruption. This process is a fragile process, is inconsistent in judicial terms, and it's unfair. It is against an innocent and honest person. It's brutal.
And now away from politics and to a much lighter topic. Friday the 13th may be the most superstitious day of the year. One option is to stay tucked up in bed all day to avoid any potential Friday the 13th bad luck that may come your way. Or alternatively, you could ignore the superstitious chatter and embrace it. What do Algerians think about this day? The answer with Karim Fazdakri.
Friday 13th is widely considered an unlucky day. According to the Stress Management Center and Phobia Institute in Asheville, California, an estimated 17 to 21 million people in the United States are actively affected by Fear Friday 13th, making it the most feared day in history. Some people refuse to fly or close a business deal on this date, while others refuse to leave the house even. Friday 13th, which appears several times a year on our calendars, sparked endless debates between strokes of luck and unheard and unexplained disasters. Superstition creates havoc, especially when bad pranks are organized on this day. Today is Friday, May 13th, and that's why we try to find out if Algerians believe in any of this. Friday 13th is just an unlucky day in which many bad things happen. But this is just superstition, and we shouldn't believe in that. Besides, it's not part of our culture. I don't believe in Friday 13th because this doesn't have anything to do with our religion. It's a blasphemous thing to believe in it. I'm against those who imitate others' traditions. We have our own personality, culture, and traditions. Why do I have to follow and imitate them? Why don't they? God says, take what the Prophet brought you and leave whatever he forbade you to do. So, in a nutshell, just follow your own religion. The problem is that many Algerians follow the Western world in Halloween and rock parties. It's as if Algerians are adopting their culture. We left our traditions and religion and we follow the Western world. Fear of Friday 13th is traced back to many ancient myths dating back to Viking times. For the English, Friday is believed to have been considered an unlucky day since the 14th century publication of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And on a Friday fell all this mischance. In Christianity, Friday is also the day on which Jesus was crucified and Eve tempted Adam with the forbidden fruit. More recent reasons for such a fear are said to stem from the Friday 13th series of films. Friday 13, with its negative connotations, remains fortunately far to influence the mind of any Algerian, though many are superstitious in their own way.
And finally, the Cannes Film Festival 2016 kicked off in style on May the 11th. Let's take a look at all the participants and divas who made a splash on the red carpet on the opening day, as well as the movies competing for the grand prize with Hints Minaras.
The stars are out on the French Riviera for the 69th Cannes Film Festival taking place until May 22nd. 21 films are competing for awards this year at the 12th-day event, with a host of other productions showing out of competition. Counting 6 months after the Paris attacks in November, the 69th Cannes Film Festival has elevated security measures, swarming the French Riviera resort town with an increased police presence. Joining the usual lineup of bejeweled gowns from Blake Lively to Bella Hadid to Naomi Watts, tuxedos are the old-school style statement that everyone is talking about, making appearances on the likes of Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon in a contemporary take from Victoria Beckham. Kicking off the festival, which this year has George Miller as the jury director, will be Woody Allen's 1930s Hollywood comedy Cafe Society, with a star-studded cast that includes Kristen Stewart and Jesse Eisenberg. The film has already scored solid reviews and looks to become one of the better-reviewed Allen films of the last few years.
Try me. Listen, I'm so lonely. I would have been happy just
American films in actual competition include Jim Jarmusch's Patterson, Sean Penn's The Last Phase starring Javier Bardem and Charlize Theron, Jeff Nichols' Loving starring Joel Edgerton and Ruth Negga, in the based-on-fact story of the Virginia couple whose case led the Supreme Court to legalize interracial marriage. There are, of course, a lot more than American films that can. In fact, the festival counts works from 28 countries in the main event. These include new competition efforts from vulnerable auteurs such as Spain Pedro's Almodovar, Belgium's The Dartons Brothers, Britain's Ken Loach, and Elite Editions, Iran's Ashghar Farhadi. With a solid opening, most hope the festival will showcase the best of international cinema, especially after last year where enthusiasm seemed low for most of the competition films.
That's all for me, Nadia Kasmi, and the rest of the team. Economy News is next. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.